following video illustrates how to integrate Planswift 9 with MC2 and perform on-screen takeoffs. Starting up in MC2, you're going to want to create a new file or open a current estimate. I decided to make a new file named tutorial. Go ahead and select your data files for this project. Going up to optional, you will see there is a Planswift 9 option. Selecting it prompts you to create a new Planswift job with the same name. If you have a Planswift 9 job that you already want to use, you may have to change the name of it to reflect MC2 or vice versa. I'm just going to enter in the same name and description, tutorial, for each, and that should match up with MC2. Create a new job as you normally would by selecting drawings to include. I end up changing the drawing selection later on in this tutorial because I want to show a foundation drawing. When everything is loaded, you'll want to scale the page appropriately. Do this by going to the scale selection. If the scale is set and you can check it, you can use the drop-down box. Otherwise, you'll have to enter in the scale manually. If you go over to Pages, you can see the icon that indicates the page has been scaled. Now I will illustrate how to manage Planswift models and MC2 construction systems. In MC2, construction systems are used as the primary form of takeoff. Looking at the construction systems, we have many options for takeoffs. These systems will be used as templates in Planswift for all takeoffs. We'll do an example of foundations. Opening the footings system, we can see categories that will be filled in by hand on MC2. All of them will be managed on Planswift when we perform the takeoff. As you can see, important quantities like length, quantity, mark field, dimension, and spec section can be seen. Returning to Planswift, we want to look at the ICE panel on the top right of the home ribbon to make sure everything is connected. First, select the Connect icon and continue through subsequent windows. This will link the two programs. Next, we look at the Manage Models application to add in new templates. This is the window that appears when you select Manage Models, and as you can see, it is all based on MC2 construction systems. On the left is where you can find and select the construction system you want to take off in this plan. Now to begin, it is good to decide whether we want to store these templates on the network or locally. The drop-down box on the right is where this option can be found. You can also update previous models to make sure they get onto the network. In our example, we're going to perform takeoffs for a continuous footing and several square footings. We will find what we need in the General Contractor model set, also reflected as an MC2 construction system. Select General Contractor and then Footings and Pile Cabs. Now you'll see that there are several choices you can make, and some models are already pre-made in MC2. But for instructional purposes, I'm going to use the blank option for both continuous footing and the square footings. For the continuous footing, we want to set the takeoff type to linear, and for the square footings, we will import a count. It will be easiest in this case to import one model and then copy and modify it for the other footing type. Let's first import a blank model for continuous. Make sure this drop-down box is set to linear and the quantity option is also linear. When finished, press OK and import. You can check multiple options and import several models at a time. Now to find our imported model, we will expand the right side templates bar and open the corresponding folder. You can see that our blank model is there and has a linear icon next to it. That is good. If you double click the item or right click and select properties, it will open the properties menu. This is a read-only window and you cannot edit properties in this location, but it serves as a good double check. For blank, everything should be empty. To actually edit the template model, we'll go to the template ribbon at the top. Locate the template and double-click it to change its properties. Changing the space for name changes the local name for Planswift, and changing the space for mark field changes the name that will be seen in MC2. I have chosen to name this template Default Continuous Footing. Now if you look at the Dimensions and Specs section tabs, you'll see that they line up with the sections in MC2 construction systems. Your inputs in Planswift will fill in the blanks in MC2. Returning to Planswift, I'm going to select just the basics for a standard continuous footing. More specific dimensions will be added in later when I actually perform the takeoff. I do this because it will allow me to use the same template for multiple different footings that may have varying dimensions. Going back to the dimensions section, I want to make sure there is no conflict between the quantity and another dimension, in this case the length. What we want to do is make our length option equal to the length we take off. So as to not double count, I'll make the quantity box a multiplier of 1 instead of a takeoff item. In the length box, I'll type linear total or copy over what is in the quantity box. Review everything once more and press OK. Next, I'm going to create a template for square footings. Rather than go through the process of adding another model, I can copy the existing footing model and modify it to be a counted square footing. Right-click on Default Continuous Footing and select Copy. Paste below. Double-clicking will allow you to clear the values and change the name. Now we're going to want to count the footings, but the current template is set to linear. To change this, select the Advanced icon at the bottom of the window. In the Advanced screen, we're going to want to change the type from linear to count. There are quite a few options for the type of item it is, so be sure to find the correct one. Looking through the advanced window, you can see all the possible takeoff variables. When not using MC2, these can come in handy. Press OK when finished. Reopen the square footing option to confirm all changes have been applied. Check the Spec Selections and Dimensions tab as required. Change to column footing with length and width as variables instead of area. Going back to dimensions, change the quantity to say point count. In this tutorial video, I make a mistake and say count, but I later fix it to say point count. Now we are ready to take off some quantities. The templates we just made will always be there for every project, and they won't have to be made again. The takeoffs themselves, however, will be unique to each project and have their own set of properties that get the basics from the templates. Returning to the home screen, find a template you want to use and hit the record button. Change the name and mark field to better reflect the actual takeoff. In this case, I am making a 2-foot continuous footing. Going into Spec Selections, fill out each of the specifications that are required. Returning to the Dimensions tab, fill in all the proper dimensions for this continuous footing. Be sure to enter in numbers only in the boxes. When finished, review, change the color if necessary, and press OK. We are now ready to take off the quantity. Take it off as you normally would. On the left-hand side, you can see where the takeoffs end up. From here you can make changes and add additional measurements if required. If you click on the Pages and Bookmarks section, you can see the takeoffs that correspond to each page. Again, press record to add additional takeoff. When finished, connect to MC2 once again and press Sync Takeoff to sync your results over to MC2. At this point, it is good to check with MC2 to make sure that the takeoff worked correctly. Going into Construction Systems, you can see which systems have already been used. Double-clicking the most recent construction system will open up the new takeoff. Notice that our quantity is set as 1, where the number we took off is set as the length. Now I'm going to illustrate why it's important to make changes in Planswift, but not in MC2. As an example, I will change the thickness in MC2 to 2 feet instead of 1 foot. Next, I'll go over to Planswift and look at the item. As you can see, the thickness is still only set at 1 foot. The change made in MC2 did not reflect in Planswift. More importantly, if the item is left as it is, the next time you sync, it will be reset in MC2. Returning to MC2, we can see that the item is no longer 2, but it reverted back to 1. To solve this problem, be sure to make changes in Planswift only. Next, I will use the count template that we had made to count the square footings. I will start by changing the name of this new takeoff to 12-foot square footing. I will set the dimensions and spec selections as I did before. When everything is ready, select OK and simply point and click to count the footings. When finished, hit stop. Again, you can see the footings are on the left side panel. Now you will see me correct the mistake that I had made when I had entered in count for quantity instead of point count. This will ensure that the quantity is counted correctly. Syncing with MC2 and checking work will give us the correct results. As you can see, the quantity is now correct. Check your variables and hit enter. We now have 2 foundation systems that have been entered into MC2 using Planswift. That's all there is to it. For additional support, go to planswift.com or ribmc2.com.